Hello, sports fans. It's Saturday, March 8th. Welcome to Cleats by Dre. I'm Dre. Let's talk some sports. Your boy's back. Hello, hello. So it's been a couple weeks since we've spoken. A few things going on, right? It was my birthday, which was a lot of fun. Work had me fly out to London, and I got a little story from that for this pod. And then when I got back that weekend, I was just falling asleep by 9 o'clock. Still on the London time, the Greenwich Mean Time. So look, I think the reality is, I with me starting this new job now, I don't even know if I could commit to weekly, but I don't want to shut this thing down. I want to keep this thing going. So as long as you're okay with me popping in from time to time, when things get hot, we'll talk about the teams we talk about things that are interesting to me. I just don't know right now I can commit to every week, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try on weekends to do something because it's fun. I really enjoy doing this and I hope you enjoy listening. Today's topic is about my trip to an English Premier League match, my very first one when I was in London. I saw West Ham versus Leicester. I messed that up first. I went Leicester when I asked for a ticket. I'll tell you about that. Then I went Leicester, and I was corrected both times to Leicester. But I'll talk about my experience, pretty quickly, and also just bubble up to like what I think as an American first time going to an EPL match, and what I found, and what I learned, and how we're different. Before I get there, though, let's kick around a couple topics near and dear to our sports here. Basketball season's in full swing. Duke basketball is rocking. This team is blowing the doors off their competition. Yeah, it's a question, sure, maybe that they haven't really played anyone that's really a Sweet 16 threat, a real Sweet 16 threat in months. Maybe it's a problem that the three closest games they've played, they've lost. But I'm positive on this team, man. You know that they're blowing people out. They're analytical darlings. They're passing not just the analytics test, but the smell test. We'll have some more content on them coming up. Big game later tonight versus Carolina. Oh, please win by 40. I would love nothing more than that. Next basketball team is the Knicks, of course. And what a weird season for the Knicks, right? I'm recording this Friday night. They're 40-22. Brunson is out for a couple weeks at least. Let's see who steps up. It's so weird. Knicks fans have had it awful for decades, and now we're seemingly not happy with a 40-22 team that's very talented and has this core together for the next few years. Because we haven't beat elite teams and we've looked bad against elite teams, I kind of get it. I mean, this team feels kind of soft. We don't like soft teams. Talented but soft. I'll be honest, part of me, we all knew this team wouldn't be the same as last year's, right? And that wasn't a choice of the Knicks. It started when Hartenstein left, right? They couldn't keep him. He was a big part of the toughness of this team. I think they're missing DiVincenzo from the outside. And Towns is so talented. It's got me yearning a bit for like last year's Knicks team, which gave a hell of a postseason run with injuries, with Randall out, with Mitchell Robinson out, with Bogdanovich out towards the end, with Anunoby out towards the end. Man, if that team was fully healthy, they beat the Pacers. I mean, who knows? Celtics were a juggernaut, so I don't know if they do much more. But, God, I kind of want that team with a Hartenstein. I kind of want that team together, but I'm gonna be optimistic. I'm skeptical that Tibbs is the right coach for this team. Without Brunson in the next couple of weeks, I mean, it's halftime of the Clippers game right now. They're down by 6. I'm surprised they're even hanging tough. Time for guys to step up. Time for guys to step up. Time for guys to get tough, right? New York Knicks playoff basketball, even though they don't win finals titles in half a century, they play tough. So let's see what happens there. Spring training is getting in full swing. I haven't followed it too closely yet, but that's around the corner. That'll be exciting. But let's get into today's topic. Let's get into the fact that I went to my very first Premier League match. So I went to my very first Premier League match, and it was awesome. It was impressive. And you guys know I'm not a huge Premier League fan. I played a lot of soccer growing up. It's probably my best sport, but I never really got to watching it outside of the World Cup. Always big the patriotic slant for me. But yeah, I was in work for London. It was a great trip. It came together last minute, and so I was like, I got to do one cultural thing, quote unquote, right? My culture thing is sports. I had to do one thing, and that's the incredible part about London. There's several teams based there, and there are lots of options for games. And I actually, at the company I worked for, I was able to meet one of the managers of sports partnerships. It's a great guy, and I said, hey, any tips to go? And he's like, hey, my best friend works in marketing for West Ham, and he had a ticket for me, within 5 minutes. He had 2 tickets. I couldn't find anybody to go with me. My team is not quite into it, or I don't know. And that's fine. Right? Sometimes you got to date yourself, is what they say. So you got to date yourself. So I took myself out, and it was a great experience. It started. And I got there late. We had a happy hour at work, and I took the tube out, the train to get out there. It was at London Stadium. That's where West Ham plays. I've learned they've played there, I think, for the last 8 years or so. The owner, David Sullivan, who actually, I did my research, former pornographer, which is just great, funny story about how someone gets to own in a huge sports team. You can make money in a lot of ways. Really lobbied the town after the Olympics in London that West Ham will take over London Stadium. So huge stadium, 62,500 seater. And I got out there, really, I thought like middle of the first half. And the walk up to a stadium, that's one of my favorite things anywhere, right? Growing up, I used to love when we do cross-country road trips, just driving by a stadium and looking at it. But getting out and walking up and like it's something new and different. What's cool is they have like the huge torch. If you remember the London Olympics, like that's right next to the stadium. And so you're walking up and boom, you hear it. Huge rush. Huge. West Ham must have scored a goal in the first half. They scored 2. They were up 2-0 at half. But you hear that rush and you're like, that's a pop that you don't always hear at U.S. sporting events. It's like that. It caught me right away. And, it felt different right away. But then, of course, something I realized, and I'll run through basically a list of things that I kind of took notes on and realized that stuck out to me. Security is no joke. One bridge I was trying to get to was shut down, so I had to go walk around like 5 to 10 minutes to another bridge. And once you get in, it's a one at a time entrance. Like basically, you enter into this holding cell where you like scan your ticket, and then you get released into the stadium. I've had less security getting on a plane, I'll say that. So they take that seriously. And then I was inside, and I was walking the corridor. I got some food. I actually really wanted to buy the kids some gear. And what the ultimate irony, because like you can't walk 10 yards in a U.S. stadium without being confronted by merchandise. And here, I couldn't find anything. I was walking around. I was looking for something. And it turns out the stadium store is closed during the match. That's how serious they take their football. It's closed. The one time I actually wanted to buy something, I couldn't. I'll also give them credit, right? And this might be more a cultural thing in the UK. Appreciation for food allergies. They had signs posted everywhere. I don't have food allergies. My youngest son has many. And geez, you go to some American restaurants, some American stadiums, the looks they give you when you mention your kid has allergies are like, I guess you can't eat here. I guess, guess you're out of luck. But, nice that they had those posted. So I'm impressed with the atmosphere and experience. And this is before I even get to my seats. Halftime comes. I'm not even at my seats yet. This is because I was walking around the stadium the whole time. And everyone heads outside. I think they head outside to grab a smoke. I think they head outside to grab a beer because, right, you don't serve alcohol in the stadium, but in the outside corridor you do. Man, everyone's kind of friendly. Everyone's kind of talking to each other, and it seems like they all know each other. 62,000 people stadium. It wasn't completely full, but it was mostly full. And then the second half starts, and I head out to the grandstand, and man, it struck me there was an aura. And keep in mind, this is a 2-0 match at halftime. This is West Ham, who's 16th in the table, versus Leicester City, who's 18th in the table out of 20. This is the bottom of the table match. This could be possibly the worst match all year. But there's a buzz in the crowd. They're singing, right? It goes. Yeah, they're singing. I mean, there's chants. Irons. I think I missed a lot of the singing because I didn't get there before the match. I should have. But people are into it, and I don't know, it just seemed like so many people. And maybe I haven't been to an NFL game, and I've been to college football games that had less aura than that, I gotta say. And so that was cool. And I mean, the biggest thing for me was just a reminder of how much I love soccer. And how much prettier it is than American football. And I'm a huge American football fan. But soccer is free-flowing, and the angles and the runs, and especially being there live, you can see plays develop, and the crowd is so knowledgeable. Just reminded me how much it's a beautiful, beautiful sport. And, in the moment, I would say, oh, God, I'm going to go watch more EPL. I don't think I actually will. I should. It was beautiful, but just reminded me of that. And so, quite an experience for me. And it got me thinking of the best fan experiences I've had. And I made a list of the best experiences I've had in sports. And I think I mentioned some of you in my first episode, right? Where, first going to Duke, almost every game in Cameron Indoor was special. I mean, of course, the UNC games are the most, but just how close you are to the court, how rowdy the students are, the tradition, to feel that you're linking to decades past. In terms of baseball, I mean, a couple of Mets playoff games stand out, right? The Game 7 of the NLCS in 2006, the Harvey Game 5, 2015 in the World Series. The chanting, the unison chanting, the feeling of being close to a championship. The Knicks playoff game I just went to, Game 5 against the Pacers in 2024. A rabidness in the crowd, just ready to just finally break through. Of course, the Super Bowl I went to with the Giants in Indianapolis against the Patriots, the second one. There was just a buzz in the air of people feeling how cool it is to be in a Super Bowl. It was almost, it was loud, of course, but it was people, it was a status thing. People were oh, cool, we're at the best party in the world. And then when I go to college football, a couple of instances of Notre Dame stand out. Actually, both versus Michigan. My first one, I give credit to the Big House in 2011, the first night game. That was a wild game. I saw the highlights of that recently with 3 touchdowns in the last minute and a half. Unfortunately, Notre Dame lost. But there was a loud, and that was a rivalry, right? There's a level of really hate between the two schools. And then followed it up the next year when I was in South Bend in 2012. Where Notre Dame finally broke through on Denard Robinson and won 13-6 and got 5 interceptions. But what stands out to all these moments, these are all peak moments, right? And really peak when the teams are doing their best, when they're closest on the cusp, in a bitter rivalry. In Duke, I know I kind of generalized, but I mean, there were some boring games to go to at Cameron. A non-conference early game. I mean, it was still rowdy and exciting. I would say of all my U.S. sporting experiences, the floor of a Duke home game basketball, the highest of any event I went to. But still, um, I think what I experienced with the EPL with I believe a really bottom of the table matchup suggests to me that there's just a higher floor of like how incredible and exciting and energetic those games are. And so I tried to think through it, and I used ChatGPT to help too. But I came up with we came up with five biggest reasons why the EPL probably has this going for them. So number five, we'll go in reverse order. I think that game experience with no distractions, right? I don't know. I mean, there's no timeouts, right? Running clock till halftime. Apparently, there's really not too many or no hype videos, no music, no cheerleaders, no forced entertainment, right? The crowd is the entertainment, staying engaged the entire time. They weren't selling merchandise. They weren't selling alcohol, so people weren't too distracted. Like you are, and it's amazing because in the U.S. we're building these malls of stadiums that are kind of cool. I'll be honest. I like going to Citi Field and having some good food, but it's almost like they're distractions to the game, where the focus is on the game. So people are into it. They're locked in. They're focused. So that's different. Number four, the club identity and deep-rooted loyalty. Yeah, I mean, the EPL clubs have over a century-old history, and they're really deeply tied to local communities. I mean, not just local cities, right? Like in the U.S. sports, like communities within cities. And really fans are born into supporting their club. That generational passion creates a different level of commitment and intensity. And, there's some, especially baseball, right? Baseball goes back nearly a century. But, a lot of expansion in the American sports. And, there's just not as like maybe widespread, like this deep-rooted loyalty. Where, like, literally, I was watching the crowd and, like, it seemed like people knew each other. It seemed like a big, like, high school football game is what it felt like, which is cool. Number three, I'll give it to the singing and chant culture. Unlike most American sports crowds, the EPL fans, they constantly sing, chant, create anthems specific to their team, and sometimes mock their opponents. This coordinated type of atmosphere brings the stadiums alive. And I don't know. I'm not talking about the Jets doing JETS, Jets. Like, I'm talking about the songs, like, in the middle of the match. I didn't get to experience as much, but I could just, there's a bonding that happens there. And I'm not talking about in the U.S. when they do a wave, right? They do, this is like, I don't know, more rooted into what makes it great. The two more I'll add is, these are both pretty big ones, but the second one is, the obvious one is that football or soccer is the number one, maybe the really only professional sport in England. The U.S., we're divided. We have football, basketball, baseball, not to mention the college sports too. In England, it's like they're all blending into one. So everyone's in. If you're into sports, you're into soccer and football. And so that has to help. That has to play a part. And the last one for me that I would agree with ChatGPT is the biggest factor. It's the promotion and relegation of the Premier League. Every game matters, right? Because teams fight to avoid relegation. The bottom feeder teams, the game I saw, Leicester, did I get that right? Leicester City, they fell down 2-0 at halftime, but they were giving it their all in the second half. And they had a good group of supporters that were in there, that were trying to make noise, trying to spur them on. In the U.S., the bottom feeder teams, they tank for draft picks. And it's like, all right, we're in for next year. So you really, like, if you're playing a video game, you want to hit the simulation button. Let's just sim through this. No, because people are at the game, people pay tickets, people bought tickets in advance. It just gets flat, Imagine the NFL Giants this past year. And I haven't been to a Giants football game in a long time. The imagine if the Giants were going to get knocked down to a Division Two if they didn't win towards the end of the year. Think their fans would be into it more? I think so. Otherwise, the fans were rooting to tank. So, that's a big difference too. And we could try to analyze. Well, could promotion relegation ever come to the U.S. in the professional leagues? I put out that crazy idea between NFL and college football, kind of doing something like that. But the reality, it's not. The franchise values are so astronomical because there's less risk, right? There's not a risk of your team being relegated. The owners have never let it happen. Reading the tea leaves, the reason it's just in the EPL is because it goes back 100 years. That's how it started. They wanted to give a chance for lower teams to build up, and really they've used it to be an excitement of like every match matters if you don't want to be relegated. So that's a defining factor, and I just think it's cool, and I think it's different, and I'm appreciative of it. So let's learn. Maybe we can learn as fans in the U.S. from what the EPL does. Or let's just keep it our way, right? Let's keep it our way with pumped-in music, with the least allergy-friendly food possible, and just in general, hoping our teams don't get bad enough where they're going to end up tanking. All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed. A lot of great sports coming up. Talk to you soon.